I just assumed it would be complicated and tiring and difficult and that I'd mess it up every possible way. But in reality, it's actually pretty easy. Okay, so my major goal for this portion of the install is to pull the refrigerator out into the RV. I need to remove it from the area it currently sits in because I need to get in there to route a cable down from the roof, down through the back of the refrigerator and get it down into the lower parts of the RV. To remove the refrigerator, there are actually only 6 screws holding it in. To get to those screws, I have to go to the back. I have 2 on the bottom, and I have 2 on the top hidden behind this control panel. And I'll show you each of those 6 screws as I remove them, and I'll tick them off in the video so you see them coming out. The other thing I need to think about is that this refrigerator is currently supplied with AC power, DC power, 12-volt power, okay, and also propane gas. I need to make those disconnections before I do anything else to the refrigerator. And of course, I need to empty it because when I move it, it's going to be unplugged and anything that's in there is going to be spoiled. Last but not least, I'm going to remove all the sofa cushions here and pull them to the other end of the trailer. I need clear space to work. I don't want to have to worry about damaging the leather on those cushions, and I also don't want things to get hidden or trapped between cushions or underneath them. Okay, so our first step will be to go to the back of the refrigerator on the outside of the RV and take a look at what connections are there and what I'll need to do to disconnect those things. So I'm going to have my wiring come down the refrigerator vent. So it starts all the way up here and comes all the way down to here. So my first step really is to look inside here and do a little recon on what I'm going to need to do. These refrigerators can run primarily on AC power, household power, or they can run off propane. But when they're running on propane, they also need a little 12-volt power from your batteries. So it's really important when you're looking at this back of the refrigerator that you think about those 3 inputs, AC power, DC power, and propane. So there's the drip hose here. There's a copper loop that indicates the propane input to the fridge, and there is the connection right there for the propane. There is DC power from the batteries. That's coming through here, and these 2 wires, red is, I assume, positive, and white is, I assume, negative. But there is a wiring diagram over here, so I can confirm that. The last input, of course, is AC power, and in my trailer, that is above. So here we go, there's an AC outlet, a household outlet up here, and the refrigerator is just plugged into it. In terms of getting the refrigerator out of here, it looks like there are just a couple bolts right there, and a similar one on this side right there, and that those are holding the refrigerator in place. So it really looks like the refrigerator will be easy enough to remove, and that's what I've been told by other people. So my next step is to kill off power to the refrigerator. My circuit breaker panel, my fuse panel, probably looks a lot like yours. On the left here, I have circuits for shore power. That's AC, household power. But over here is the 12-volt panel. There is a list of what's in this panel below it. You'll see that it says, circuit 1 through circuit 9. But if you look at the panel itself, the numbers of the circuits are above them here, and it goes actually way higher than 9. It goes to...
These go to 11.
So when you're counting your circuits, you really have to go from the left to the right, and that's really important. So on here it says that the refrigerator is circuit number 3, right? So circuit 3, hood, pump, reefer, right? So I'm going to pull the circuit, the fuse for circuit number 3, which is 1, 2, 3, and I can look and see that little number 3 under there, so I know I'm the right one. And you just pick that out of there. It's not terribly complicated. Sometimes takes a wiggle. Now back at the back of the refrigerator, I'm now going to unplug this AC outlet. So this is providing AC power to the fridge, and now that I've unplugged it, I don't feel the need to turn off the circuit for it. Just like in your house, if you'd unplugged something, you wouldn't feel like you needed to turn off the circuit for it to move it. So here's the thing is, as you're digging into this closet and you need to know what tool goes where, how much clearance you have, it can be helpful to use your phone as a little bit of a scope. So, you know, I can use my phone here to look in here and say, oh wow, these are flathead screws and I need to go get a flathead screwdriver. Other little things like when you get close and you really dig in, you know, here's a confirmation 12 volt DC power in. I didn't really see that the first time I went through here. Over here I can look at this bolt that I'm going to need to remove and see whether there's anything going on with it. Just using your phone can be really helpful as a way of probing things, assuming you don't want to have one of those fancy cameras on a fiber optic line. So let's get started. So now I have a little more room to put my screwdriver in here. And I got to find the threads, and there we go. And then this one. I've got my AC power out of the way, and I've got this out of the way. Just gives me a little more room to work in here. There's no light there. There's no light here, right? So this fridge is dead, and that's just what I want. So the next step is super important. You're going to be disconnecting the gas line from the back of your refrigerator, so you got to shut off your gas. I like to also turn on the stove to burn off any gas that's left in the lines. It just helps drain the gas lines a little bit more. When the fuel is exhausted, make sure you turn those burners right back off again, because you do not want to turn your gas back on later and have it flowing inside the trailer. So the next step here is to disconnect the gas. And right above it you will see, attention, use a backing wrench when you're disconnecting the gas or reconnecting the gas. Remember too that there's a lot of flexibility in this loop, but you really can't bend it, you know, severely. So you got to be careful about not taking too much liberty with that. Okay, so I'm fitting my wrench on here. I'm going to hold this side with my with regular channel locks, and I'm just doing that so I can apply a little bit of back force on the joint. There we go. Okay. Would have been easier if I had brought a bigger wrench. So, and there is sufficient room in here to use a bigger wrench. So, there's a pro tip for anybody who's doing this. Bigger wrench, more leverage. And there we go. We are disconnected from the gas. Okay, so just to review, I have unplugged the AC power to the fridge. I have physically disconnected and removed the fuse for the 12 volt DC power to this refrigerator, and I have also turned off the propane tanks and drained the propane lines before disconnecting the propane from this refrigerator. So 1, 2, 3, DC, AC, propane have all been disconnected from this refrigerator, and it is ready to have me remove it. So while I was making those disconnections, I also removed the 2 screws at the back of the refrigerator that were holding it in place. Okay, so these are 10mm sockets. I did notice that I could see these screws poking through the floor underneath the fridge. So you can see they're really quite long. I mean, that's a long self-tapping hex screw. And it goes clearly through the floor, which must be 3/4 of an inch or better, and into the next compartment. There we go. So, really long screw there. That leaves 4 more screws at the front. There are 2 on the bottom and 2 at the top. The 2 at the bottom are part of the trim piece at the very bottom of the refrigerator, and you can remove those screws pretty easily. They're 2 long brown screws. The 2 at the top are hidden behind this control panel, so we'll need to pull that control panel off first and then remove those screws. Ignore these hinge screws. It's this brown screw right there. That's going down into the floor under the fridge, the floor of the fridge compartment, and over here there's a matching screw. It's holding down this metal trim piece, which will come off when you remove those screws. So let's take those out. You can see that's a pretty long screw there. and they're in at an angle, so it takes a little trial. Okay, so this is the piece of trim that was on the bottom, and it slides under the hinge. So pretty easy to get out. It didn't require any muscle work of any significance. Okay, here's a little bit of a close-up here, but I really want to show you what's going on here. There's a screw right here, and there's a screw right here, and they are very small screws, but that's what's holding this control panel on. So I'm going to remove those so you can see me remove the control panel. I'll start over here. Very small screw. Another small screw. And now this control panel just lifts right out. Now we're zoomed in even further, and I want you to see right here, there's this silver tape right here. That tape is covering the screw we want to use. There's one over here, and there's another one on the other side. And behind these pieces of silver tape are the last two screws. So I'm just going to peel that off. It's a pretty straightforward process here. That's it. That's what it looks like. Just a standard piece of silver HVAC tape. So there's one screw on the right hand side. I'll pan back and pray for good focus. And here's the first screw. Okay? And all I got to do is remove these screws. So let me do that while you're watching. There you go. Little silver screw. There you go, there's the second one. Okay, at this point, we've removed the two screws from the back, we've removed the two screws from the bottom, and I've removed the two screws from the top here and put this control panel back on. This refrigerator is disconnected also from power and gas at the back, and it is ready to be pulled out. So, before I do that, I gotta put a table in place, and that means measuring how high up I want that table to be and making sure it's sturdy enough to support the refrigerator. After I put that table in place, I'm just going to grab the edges of this cabinet and pull the refrigerator out. So here goes. In my trailer it looks to be 14 inches. I'm going to measure the other end just in case. The other side is almost 13 and a half. So it's just not straight. So I'm going to build my table to 13 and a half inches. And I might even look for something like a milk crate or a toolbox or something that's already the right height, just so that I don't have to spend my day building. Okay, I got pretty lucky on this one. I found a container in my shop. This is a Festool, like 3-unit high container. It's pretty obscure, but it actually matches the height that I wanted exactly. If I add just a single sheet of plywood, I am exactly where I need to be. The height of the container plus 3/4 of an inch for the plywood in this case. I'm going to hold that on here with some double-faced tape, and that's really all I need. This thing's going to come right out and just sit here. I'm not going to go down the road with it, right? So I just need enough to hold it up and make it easy to get out of that space. I looked at milk crates. Most milk crates are a little shorter than this, so just 2 layers of plywood would do it. And it also didn't escape my notice that the stool I'm sitting on is almost exactly the same height. You know, this is a pretty common item that a lot of us have in our RVs. You know, this is designed to hold 300 pounds. So if you attached a piece of plywood to this, you save yourself the step of having to make a table there. So, you know, I got lucky with this container, but a milk crate would work. This kind of stool would work. Really a stack of bricks would work. Anything you can use to get to the right height that's not going to fall over when you push the fridge on it, but it doesn't need to be stable enough for nuclear warfare or extended travel. It just needs to hold the fridge up for a couple hours while you do the install. First, I'm going to take this door off, right? Which you can do by just pressing the back of these hinges and then they lift up. Second, I noticed that there is a bead of caulk on here. little bit of sealant between the bottom of the fridge and the top of the shelf. And I don't know about you, but sometimes that can really cause me trouble. So I was going to try to pull that off, and if it doesn't pull off, I was going to cut it. Okay, so I am going to take my box here, undo the double-sided tape so that I can stick the plywood to it very. So I've got my table. It's butted right up against the wall here. You can see it's very solid, right? I've got my fridge, and I can just start walking it out. And once it's out, just ever so slightly, once the sort of grip of time has been lost, it starts to slide pretty easily. You know, my table's like, maybe a 1/16 of an inch too high, but I just adjusted it, and I'm good to go. And there we go, the fridge is out. So this is a lot easier than it looks on the surface. It's a lot easier than you think it might be. I was really intimidated to do it, so I'm glad I sort of forced myself through this process. Now I can get to that back vent and run cables really easily. So pulling a fridge takes a little bit of effort, only takes 8 screws total, 2 of which are just removing that control panel. But after that, comes right out, and I'll be able to push it back in when the time comes. So there you go. It was a lot easier than I thought it would be, even though I had to figure it out as I went along. And in the end, I was able to just slide it out nice and easy. I really liked how simple it turned out to be, and I was happy to be able to document every step along the way. I'm going to continue with my cellular booster install in episode 3, where I get up on the roof and I start figuring out where wires go. If you want to be notified of that, make sure you click the alarm bell and subscribe to my channel. But other than that, if you have any questions about this refrigerator thing, just shoot me a comment or an email. I'm happy to respond and provide additional detail. That's it. I hope that helps.